Welcome back, welcome back to the Vet S.O.S podcast. Remember, you do not have to drown in the sea of transition. You grab that Vet S.O.S Lifeline. We're here to help. Now, sitting down on the stoop, we're about to get the scoop. But what if I told you there's a medical therapy that has been helping patients around the world for decades? It's non-invasive. It requires no surgery, no stents, and no bypass. And yet, millions of Americans never heard of it. How does something with the potential to improve lives remain one of medicine's best kept secrets? Today's guest believes that there's a question worth asking. Jack Clifford is the author of EECP, the most underutilized therapy in medicine. This isn't just a book about cardiovascular treatment. It's about innovation. It's about asking hard questions, challenging conventional thinking, and advocating for yourself and for other patients. It's about making sure life-changing information reaches the people who need it the most. Whether you're a veteran, a caregiver, a healthcare professional, patient, or simply someone interested in the future of medicine, this conversation is going to be for you. It could change the way you think about health. So pull up a chair, come and sit on the stoop, because we're about to get the scoop with my man Jack. What's going on, Jack? How we doing today, brother?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. It was
Uh,
a fantastic intro. Thank you so much.
Man, I really appreciate coming on and having a conversation about your book, because when I got it in the mail, I like EECP. I said, because like in the military, we have all these acronyms,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, man, so I started to look in the glossary. So I said, what is EECP? So I was like, man, I can't wait to ask this question, because I know our viewers and listeners are like, Kings, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But don't
Yeah.
worry, I have the author right here. He's gonna tell us what
Yeah.
this
Let's get all these
EECP.
questions answered. And
Yeah,
you know what? We have the EECP what challenge in the United States. And it doesn't matter if you're a doctor or not. If you're a doctor or a patient, every time I say EECP, they're like, EECP what? And like I'm I'm done with that. I'm done with that. We gotta stop that. Like people need to know what this is.
right. So before we start, I got a little bit of scoop about you, Jack, because
Okay.
we was in the room just having a
Yeah.
conversation. I know the listeners and the viewers want to know, who is Jack Clifford. I know that you're author, you are
Yeah.
very, but let's do a quick sit down on the stoop and get the scoop of who is Jack.
Sure. Let's do it. So, the quick version of me, like, I'm 52, married with 3 kids, been married a long time, like 32 years. And joined the military, joined the Coast Guard when I was 17, and stayed in until I was 21, 21 years in service, so like 39. And I've been working for the VA ever since in a variety of different kind of analyst roles, more in the human resources space. But that's me as kind of a professional and proud father and husband and veteran. Um, but about 5 years ago, a whole lot changed for me really quickly. So, do you want me to go into some of that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, so you told us, so you did 21 years in the service, Coast Guard. You got to the
Mhm.
highest rank on the listed grade,
Yeah.
E9, right? So
Uh,
that is a milestone of its own. And
Thank
when it was time for you to transition, how was that journey for you in the
Oh,
military?
dude. It it was incredibly challenging um, on a multitude of levels. And I didn't have a very rough career. Like, I made rank pretty quick, but I also chose really safe assignments. I was never away from my family all that much. I was really blessed. But it was still really hard. And when I think about these cats that had to deploy all over the place, and they like, you know, uh, their lives, personal lives, were much more owned by the military than mine was. That's frightening because it was really hard on me, and I don't normally get phased by a lot of things. I don't have one of those. I'm what you call aphantasic, which means I don't have a visual memory, and so like trauma doesn't phase me the way it does a lot of other people because I don't have pictures in my head haunting me all the time like some people do. But it was still really hard. You know, like we were talking about earlier, we were very much young men and not mature, not grown up in many ways, and so you grow up in the military. They make all these decisions for you on so many basic things, and then all of a sudden, you know, your whole sense of that side of you is just like put in a closet somewhere, you know, and now you have all these choices, but your sense of yourself is just like so new. It's really, it might be good for people to think of themselves as babies, in my opinion. You know, there's a growing up process of being not in the military that takes a couple of years, I think, for a lot of folks to sort of like grow up into being a civilian.
Right. So
Took you
you
a while to
came
grow up
in.
in the military. I mean, think about the inverse, right? You know, we don't trust our E1s, our E2s, our A3s with much because they got to grow up into that, you know, like, you know, the opposite should. We should
Right.
start thinking about it as being the exact opposite.
So you came in at 17. You
Mhm.
transitioned out at a young, strong 39 years old. You said
Yep.
39 years old.
Yeah.
I'm transitioning out the military. I did my 20 years.
Yep.
And on the outside world, 39 is still young. So you
Yeah.
still have your whole life ahead of you.
Yeah.
So how did that transition plan to affect? Okay, 39, you're an avid runner, you running, you doing very active,
Mhm.
taking care of everybody else, right? Because
Yeah. You know.
as a E9, master chief, right?
Yeah.
As a
Yep.
master chief, enlisted grade 9 in the Coast Guard, you have a lot of people underneath you.
Yeah.
So they come to you, ask you questions. Hey, chief. Hey, chief. Hey, chief. Can you help?
Yep.
Hey, chief. Got a moment. Hey, chief.
Yep.
And instead of taking care of yourself, you put yourself on the back burner. You took care of everybody else.
Yeah. For a long time. Yeah.
So how was that transition at 39? It's time for you to
I
transition
didn't.
back to
Yeah,
the
but
civilian sector.
I didn't start taking care of myself out of the military. I mean, I had just as much people depending on me for a variety of things, and I took
Mm.
on too much. I've done that my whole life. It did catch me. It caught me about 5 years ago, but you know, I wasn't processing stress the way I thought I was. That's been a theme. It's probably a theme for a lot of veterans, I believe. But you know, I used to think of myself as like a duck. You know, everything just like all the water just running off
Yes.
my back, and like I never nothing ever felt like it phased me. And I went through some shit, like some really difficult things for people to go through, but I never really I processed it. I felt like I processed it, but I stored it. You know, I think I stored it in stress that caused. I think that's the reason that genetically my grandpa and my mother had heart disease in their 60s and 70s, not in their
Mm.
40s, and then I had.
Right. So you noticed that, and you started to put this, because you put in the first page like, hey, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a, like,
Right.
this is just my account. So we come up to your book, and
Yeah.
I always love to ask the authors, what made you come up with the cover? Because my first thing is like, when I go, the way how I look for a book, for me, I'm a visual
Yeah.
person, right? The
Yeah.
cover gotta catch me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta get pulled in by the cover. And if I was to walk in the airport and I go to Hudson News or whatever and grab me a book for the
Mhm.
flight, I'll pick this up because I'll look at it. I'm like, man, he
Yeah.
got the heart, got the
Yeah.
veins running through the body. I don't even know
It's
what
like really.
EECP means, but this looks
Yeah.
dope. Let me pick it
Yeah.
up
That's
and
what
let
I
me
was saying.
start
Yeah.
going through these pages.
Yeah, nice. I'm glad to hear that from you because that's really what I would hope for. Um,
So how did you
but
come up with the cover? And what's the
I
background behind
I
the
just
cover?
worked with AI on a bunch of different, possible scenarios. And like the first one I picked that I did the pre-publishing with, and like the print copies that you got to review and stuff was horrible, comparatively speaking. I just didn't know how good it could get till you like have these AIs competing against each other, right? And you say like, "Hey, make this better," and then the guy's like, "Oh, I made this great." So eventually, but I knew I was looking for something that really highlighted, the heart. And the first one I had was like an EKG thing, and it wasn't, it didn't glow, and it wasn't 3D, and it didn't. But when you bring that out, I think you're like, on my Facebook group, you have a picture of I've got this Facebook group that's got about 1,000 people that are all learning about ECP together. You've got this diseased heart, but it's just the blood vessels showing, and it's actual X-ray, right? And then you have after EECP, and it shows all this new growth, and like the two hearts are unmistakably different from each other, right? I want something that really brings attention to the fact that, what EECP does to the heart, it
Mm.
doesn't do all of the body, but most specifically in the heart for the symptoms that people tend to get. You know, you're taking, I mean, this happens all the time with the EECP. I've seen it countless times. Uh, you got people who are told, you got to have a new heart, like new heart. This isn't Wizard of Oz, right? Like, but
Right.
but people get new hearts, man. They take somebody else's heart, and they transplant it into your own. They're doing that nowadays. That sounds so incredibly extreme to me, right? And then you got to be on all these immunosuppressive medications, and even if it works, you're never gonna live a normal life. And instead, you could go have 35 hours of ECP and never be in that situation again. Your heart could
Mm.
almost be made brand new. And that happens all the time. It's consistent enough that I don't like ever wonder if it's not going to work. It always works. Now,
Right.
or there's some people that maybe need more hours, and ECP is a volume business. So depending on how sick you are is kind of how long it's going to take for you to get better, right? There's kind of a math equation of association there. Um,
Right. Man,
yeah,
this is good. This is great. So I see how you have the book broken down, right? 6 parts,
yeah.
over 27 chapters.
Mhm.
But I like the way how you broke it down, part one, right? And this is what I want to touch on. The story medicine forgot. So why has EECP remained
Oh,
largely
I love
unknown? Like,
talking about this. I love talking
yes.
about
So
so
for the listeners out there, they keep saying Kings. What is EECP? So Jack, if
yeah,
you could just touch like
yeah,
why
absolutely.
does it
Yeah.
remain largely unknown?
Yeah, but let's quickly explain it so everybody knows what we're talking about real quick. It won't take long. So
Yeah.
you just lie on a bed and you get these cuffs wrapped around Velcro straps, essentially wrapped against around your calves, your thighs, and your hips. So three places on each side of your body, and you lie on a machine comfortably, have a pillow, you put some shades on, whatever, put some music on, don't matter. They're gonna put a EKG lead here, here, and here on you, and then the machine's gonna just compress with bladders that are in these cuffs in between heartbeats. It goes zhuzh, zhuzh, zhuzh. And
Mm,
then the pressure is kind of mild at first, and then they increase the pressure, but over time you get used to more and more pressures, right? What the pressures are doing is sending the blood up from your lower body to your upper body, and it's giving your body the sense that it's getting massive amounts of exercise. It's not, but it simulates.
mm,
That's not, it's levels of exercise you couldn't do right now if you were Usain Bolt, or like you can't do this another way. But
right.
you can do good things with exercise. This is not poo-pooing exercise in any way, shape, or form. It's just, this is like superhuman levels. Anyways, and the body has to respond. It's got to adapt, because otherwise you're going to die. And you don't die with ESP. It's very safe. But, from your body's perspective, like, anytime you change the environment, it adapts. If it were to not do that, we wouldn't be here. Um, and so you do it enough times, each session builds on itself until you end up, in this place. Now, so that's a ECP. What is it like to be on an ECP machine? We'll talk a lot more about how, what it's good for and such, but why is it the most underutilized therapy in medicine? Well, um, it had its day, man. It was like almost 20 to 30 years ago. 30 years ago to 20 years ago, it was like really popular, and it was
Mm,
growing in popularity. And then that all stopped, and I can explain exactly what happened. So first of all, um, I want to say this. I got to preface this part of the conversation by saying this: you can't make doctor money doing ECP. Okay, you can't do it,
mm,
but you can lose doctor money by doing ECP. What I mean by that is, it don't pay enough for it to be worth your time to see somebody 35 times in 7 weeks, and to staff the treatment, for the reimbursement rates of like $100 an hour. Cardiologists make five, six, seven, $800,000 an hour. Why do they make that? Well, we'll go into that in a minute. But there's no way they're going to make that kind of salary running that kind of a business. You
Right.
can't make doctor money doing ECP, but you can lose doctor money because on the other side, they're putting the 18th stent on their average patient. That's an exaggeration, but I mean, I talked to lots of people who have 18 stents. That's not unusual.
Wow.
Um, and each one of them, the doctor could potentially make like 10 grand on that. That's how he gets to that six, seven, $800,000 number, and it's been going up and up and up, right,
Wow.
over the years. Um, so if I gave you if you were my patient and I gave you EECP, I'm not going to give you that stent next year that you probably on schedule to get, and so you're going to cost me a shit ton of money. So I'm never going to offer it to you, and you know what? That's fine. That's the economics of our system, right? It is what it is. I mean, there's aspects of it that are wonderful, and there's aspects of it I don't love, but you probably I don't know how do you separate the good from the bad, right?
Right.
I'm not trying to because here's the thing. You can make plumber money. You can make electrician money. We have a system in place to empower people to offer ECP to their community and to use it to fix themselves. And you can make some pretty darn decent money doing it and helping some people left, right, and center and feeling really good about yourself because you brought this incredible therapy to so many people in your community that don't have access right now. Because if you go to ecplocator.com, I've documented all the access points and you'll see large gaps.
Right.
So many places do not have ECP that should. It's very rare that anyone has anything resembling reasonable access. You got to go there
Right.
35 times. It's got to be pretty darn close to around the corner if you expect me to get somewhere 35 times in 7 weeks. You
Wow.
got to be real close.
Wow, and that's what you mentioned in the book, right? It's like, when the doctor say, "Hey, we want to put this thing," like, no, I'm checking myself out, and
Mhm.
you even end up purchasing a machine
Oh,
on your own
machine, because that
dime.
that was the only way to make it realistic, man. That was,
Right.
like that's pretty extreme. I get it. It felt extreme, but like the alternative, which I lived for a month, was staying in a hotel for during Monday through Friday, getting the treatments, and that was the only doctor I could find that would do it without bypassing me and stenting me and all this stuff first, which is totally unnecessary. I'm living proof.
Mm,
And you can't say like some of these doctors are like, oh, I did tell them I was doing ESP. They're like, oh, it's gonna help a little bit. And now I want to say, yo, doc, let's go for a run. Like I mean, I'm
right.
I'm passionate about this, man. I want people to challenge me by all means. Like let's have a legit conversation because I've had no procedures. I'm on no heart meds, and I can
Mm,
run a sub 7 mile right now, and I'm 52 and
wow.
I'm best shape of my entire life. And 5 years ago, I could barely walk. I was getting
Right.
chest pain just trying to keep up walking like a normal pace.
Yeah, and you were still ignoring it. You're like, man, I don't know. This I feel a little
Yeah,
discomfort, and like you brushed it off a couple of times,
yeah,
right? So,
kidding myself, man. Yeah.
like, man, what responsibility do you think that patients have in becoming advocates for their
Uh,
own healthcare?
that's a great
Because I know
question.
that was something that you shared,
Yeah,
with the doctor. Like, hey, I'm checking myself out.
yeah.
I'm out of here. No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to find alternative means. So, what questions should every patient feel empowered to ask?
Man, I think it's even deeper than that to start with.
Mm,
I think okay, let me frame it to you this way. I happened to like get to that place where I couldn't run. Um,
mm,
but that didn't just happen over, that was at least years, right? That it was happening, but I wasn't active and I wasn't listening to my body. And my body had 1,000 tells it would have told me well in advance of me not being able to run, which was you know, it was extreme for me. And then, pretty quickly it was, I couldn't really walk very fast. And then it was heading very quickly to, but a lot of guys, that rate might be slower for some of them. Or maybe it's the same pace, but people just modify their activity. That's the normal reaction. You're not taking care of yourself. You're just like, oh, that hurts. Hot stove don't touch. You
right.
know, um, that's not how it works with your body. You gotta keep pressing it and making it know that it's got to stay young, or it's just gonna get old. Like that's how we work. Um, so yeah, like I think yeah, you need to ask questions, but how about you listen to your body first, so you don't even have to be in that situation where you have to ask that question.
Right. So everybody bodies are different, right? It's
Yeah.
like, what works for you
Yeah.
might not work for me, but at least you know some of the symptoms, right? So for the ones who just tuning in, who just popped in, who come to sit down on the stoop, we get in the scoop with Jack Clifford. We talk about his book right here about EECP and how it's a secret in the medical field. Like I haven't heard about it. A lot of people haven't heard about it.
Don't
And Jack
know.
is here to talk about it. But we talk about the history. Now we're moving on to the history and the psychology of EECP, understanding how it works and why it matters. So Jack touched on like how it works. It kind of like gyrates the body, right? It like gives
Yeah.
you that
Yeah.
superhuman
I
workout,
heard
right? Like
one person say it looks like you're getting your clothes washed while they're on you.
so in plain language, how if somebody was to come across this book or just come across this machine, how would you share it in plain language of what it's like? You would just talk
Yeah,
about like, hey, it's like a washing machine, wash your
yeah,
body. You
that
on a high
extreme. I don't
spin
want people
cycle.
thinking it really feels that
Yeah.
way. Just it might look that way a little bit. It definitely doesn't feel that way. But uh, I would want you to know initially that um, for one, we have to think of our entire vasculature as this interconnected web. Like the same blood that's flowing through your brain a few minutes later, seconds later, is flowing through the extreme other end of your body. Um, and it's delivering all the life-sustaining nutrients, and it's taking away all the garbage. And if the nutrient delivery and garbage disposal process stops for very long at all, like we'll die. The
Right.
cells that don't get the blood that they need to do those things, they die. We have a term for that. It's called scar tissue. You know, Anybody knows what
Mm,
scar tissue is? That's just like tissue you're kind of stuck with, but it's non-functional. Um, and that, in a way, that's kind of what plaquing inside your vessels, if you hear the term atherosclerosis, that's kind of what plaquing is. It's just sort of like scar tissue in the
mm,
inside blood vessels. But, um, that, so like blood flow is an essential component to every disease process. And, I
mm,
challenge somebody to honestly name one. Could there be one? Maybe. I don't know. But, you know, every disease process, we put a name on it. We call it dementia or heart disease or kidney disease or whatever. It's kind of all just lack of blood flow, right?
right.
It's the universal interconnector to the body's self-regulation. Um, and so that's why ECP is the thing you got to know about, honestly, in my opinion, before you know about anything else. Like this is that level of importance. And does it mean that everyone needs to use ECP? No, but everyone needs to be aware that it's an option, and they might want to consider it if they get in a jam. If they're looking at some
Mm,
kind of a procedure or medication that has some significant risks, that's probably your body telling you it's time for ECP. You get
mm,
your 35 hours done, and you see where you're at. The odds that you're in
mm.
an entirely different place are so good that it's worth the investment.
Yeah.
Every, in my opinion. Um, and then, I'm a huge advocate of people just getting machines when they need them, potentially even just buying them. Like, I mean, I got 700 hours. Like, these hours stack on top of each other. Like, the more
Right.
hours, better is. But I haven't found more hours to be not better.
Wow.
I don't need it. I'm not dependent on it. I travel all the time. I go, several weeks without my machine when on the right. But, um, you know,
Yeah. So why do you think non-invasive like therapy sometimes struggle to earn the same attention as more invasive procedures? Like you said, like the doctor was trying to tell you, like, hey, you'll need a stent, and like, hey, I want
yeah.
to look at some non-invasive
I
therapies
think that
first.
I think everybody wants the quick answer, so the patient demand signal is on fast and easy.
Mm,
And so the medical healthcare industry, tailors its solutions to fast and easy. Um, and fast and easy also happens to be profitable, and slow
right,
and steady, it doesn't satisfy the consumer need because they got a problem they want fixed immediately. When the solution is probably not to zap the symptom, the solution is probably to understand what the symptom is telling you about the state of the body. because if I
Mm,
have a pain here, that might be the expression of a vascular challenge that's systemic, but it's showing up here first, or for a man. And message to all you veteran men out there: when your penis starts to not work so well in your 30s and 40s, and your primary care doctor just hands you a Viagra or a Cialis and says go about your business, that's the canary in the coal mine that's telling you you're gonna have a stroke soonish or a heart attack soonish. And
wow.
you need to pay serious attention when your PP stops working the way you really want it to work, and don't fool yourself, because things stop working not so well over time. You get a new sense of normal, and it's not a normal, you know? Like,
Wow.
so get ahead of it on the front end. Like, ask your wife, ask your partner, like, hey, have you noticed, like, because you might not know, is my point. It seems
Right.
crazy to say, but you might not. I didn't. I really didn't. I swear to God. And I don't know how I didn't know looking back, but I
Yeah,
was,
most of the time, like as you know, you said that you're in the VA, so most of the time, as a veteran, you get medication sent to
yeah,
you, and like,
yep,
hey, it's I heard many veterans, it's like, hey, it's like putting Band-Aid on the open wound, right? You just change
comes
out
off.
the Band-Aid once it gets saturated, put on a new
Yeah,
Band-Aid, and
yeah, that's right.
and go to the get set. You just have to have a lot of band-aids, right? So your whole backpack is full of band-aids.
Problem solved. Problem
Problem
solved. Get
solved,
more
right?
band-aids.
Right. So what misconceptions about heart disease or treatment that you would like to correct? Because I know
Oh my God. Oh my God.
that's huge, especially
Yeah.
um, you know, like we was talking and you said, man, you was an avid runner, 39 years old, you're doing
Yeah.
it like, hey, I'm healthy, I'm fit, but then you got told that you have possibly,
Well, let's make an important distinction. I hadn't been running in a while. So my wife
okay.
hit some brick walls with her health. It was really bad for a while, and I had
Mhm.
to help her get better. And we looked for alternative answers for her. So I was already kind of used to being on the lookout for things. Um, but during that time I had stopped my self care for several years, and so I had done a good job. And I wasn't like, I hadn't let myself go per se, but I was not active enough to know. And this is kind of an important tell. Like, I wasn't active enough to know if I had a heart problem until I started trying to be active again. And then all of a
Right.
sudden found out I had a heart problem. That's more common than I think people know. Like, you graduate to less and less activity because maybe you bump up against a wall. You never called angina, but that's really what it was, right?
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
you just stopped being active enough to ever trigger that angina, but then it happened again, at a lower level of activity, until pretty soon you don't get out your chair very much. And that's where I was heading, and I can't see any reason that isn't probably a somewhat common experience.
Wow. And before we started was having conversation, you said a lot of other countries are starting to adopt
Oh,
EECP,
yeah.
like, and there's a
We're
big global divide right now. So why you think adoption is so different around the world? You
yeah.
shared with me, certain countries in Europe is already
Yeah.
bringing it
Well,
online.
yeah, we got 150 access points in the US. China has 5,000. We have a huge access presence in
Wow.
Europe. We've gone downhill though, because ECP had a high watermark in 2006. There was about 1,200 access, and then stents became even more popular, and then they never Medicare stopped, decided not to reimburse for heart failure. So, like, there was a giant indication everyone was counting on to get funding for the treatment. That didn't happen, and then providers just stop, losing machines, and then COVID comes along, makes it even worse. And then, you know, um, now we're at 150 access points. China has 5,000. Um,
Wow.
and the access distance is such a critical factor of the ACP. It's almost the most important factor, because if you can't get there, you can't have the treatment. In um, China has incentives, as I understand it, for patients to be well. Their doctors get judged on a different level of performance.
Right.
Our physicians typically, especially in the specialties like cardiology, they get it's like their performance evaluation in their OER or your fitness report. Use your term from the military veteran community, right?
Right.
Like, it's like they were just judging you on one thing that didn't really make any sense, and that's probably often the case, and so that's where you put your focus area, and, then all this other obvious stuff you could do that would help a lot of people and make your command run better and whatever don't get done. Um, it's like that. So, like the financial incentives, and I'm not I often wonder, are these people just sort of like, do they have questionable morals? And there might be some of that, but I think for the most part they don't. I just think that we blind ourselves to where our profit centers are, That's where we put
Right.
our priority and our focus. So we are intentionally not curious about an option like the one we're talking about right now.
Wow.
That's why, because the system is just broken, and it incentivizes other things in other countries because the
Right.
model is
And
broken.
definitely, like, people in other countries are living longer, healthier,
Way less
less
healthcare
medical.
expenses than we resources we consume.
Right.
Yeah.
So you talked about having a website, or talked about having a group. Have you encountered other stories when people utilize ECP, and how has it
Oh my
helped
goodness.
them?
Go to eecplocator.com and then look at the testimonials. It's really easy to see them on the homepage. And then you go to this whole separate page. I got hundreds of videos of and then you can filter by condition, so you can see for stroke. You can see some of the famous people that have used it. You can see a lot of doctors talking about it. You can see heart
Mm,
disease, angina, diabetes. Great for diabetes. So I've broken it down by a lot of kidney disease, a lot of these conditions, and you can
wow.
see these people saying what it did for them. And I'm just getting started, man. Anything you see on ECP locator's been there max for 3 months. Most of it much less than that. I'm just getting started. Um, and so like there's more to come. Like I haven't unpacked all the stories. There's a few access points I haven't been able to get up yet. I haven't verified them. Um, but we're making I'm on a national movement, and I'm manifesting this with a lot of other people, a lot of support,
Right.
and
No,
my
I
wife
appreciate that. Definitely
included,
accessing it, definitely in the US and the States. I know you come across multiple barriers. Awareness is huge right now, right?
yeah,
You letting people know, through your book, through vocal, through communication, through
yeah.
talks and insurance and advocacy. Like, what barriers prevent patients from accessing ECP today, you think?
Yeah, I mean, one is just straight up money, the insurance reimbursement, while there is
Mm,
some for it, it's a very rigid criteria, and so, you gotta find a machine, first of all, that takes insurance, and many of them don't, and then you gotta have the magic condition that insurance is gonna reimburse.
mm,
That's a rare set of circumstances. Many more times, the provider isn't going to take our insurance, or what you want to use it for wouldn't reimburse, but it still doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. So we got to keep the costs as low as we can, right? And we're doing that. I've got several business models. I'm situating locally and geographically to make national, and I've got a lot of interested parties that want to help see this come to fruition. And um, we're going to be putting machines in people's homes, for
wow.
example, at certainly a rate that's much cheaper than what you would pay if you went to get it. And oh, you don't have to travel. And oh, sometimes people have to travel so far they got to stay the night. And
Right.
and honestly, a lot of the time people got to travel that far because there just are not very many access points.
Yeah.
Um,
You even
and
had to travel, right? You
I
staying at
did.
hotels for the week and then
Oh,
go
it was
back home on the
so
weekends?
difficult. Yeah,
Yeah.
Monday through Friday, all to do something at one random doctor's office for 1 hour, and then I'm back to the hotel, like sitting there. You know, they wouldn't do two a day, which we can do two a day. We can do two a day, 7 days a week. You can get the 35 hours done in 18 days and move on with your life. We're making all this happen. Like this is this is going to change the health status of the entire country, of every veteran. I do work for the VA right now, so when I retire from the VA, I will be strongly encouraging the VA to look into this,
Right.
because it's really important, and it saves money. I mean, healthcare systems sometimes don't care about saving money, but individuals do. Do you know what a copay is for somebody's stent or bypass? It's not. free. Most
Right.
people aren't veterans and they can just go get their stuff done for free. Most people got to pay sometimes, thousands of dollars to have these procedures. Well, ECP doesn't cost but a couple $1,000s. So, and the odds of it preventing you from having something else happen later that you're going to have to pay for is great. So if you just wanted to think of it as an insurance plan against having to pay all these out of pocket expenses, you would not be dumb. Like that would be
Right.
a very, very smart move for somebody to make, is say, I'm going to get ECP every couple of years. Think of it like a life insurance or anything else. This is my own form of health insurance, and I'm doing this because I'm lowering my risk profile for all manner of things. Like that would be a, a,
Yeah.
a any rational speaking person could go look at the evidence and come to that
See,
conclusion. You know.
so what happens? Someone like, man, they exhausted everything. They exhausted all options.
Mhm.
What advice would you share with them on to move forward, or to share that they could gain access to this? Is there other programs
I,
or
I
maybe
think I think
nonprofits that help
you
out?
I think you get a hold of me. For now, that's what you do. I make it really easy to get on to be gotten a hold of, and we're going to discuss solutions. I've got several potential solutions depending on everyone's unique situation. But there's no hard sell. There's no attempt to siphon people's money. I don't want people's money. What I want is to help connect them to a solution. I have a clinic, so if my clinic makes sense, great. But if it doesn't, I don't care. What I want is people I don't want to be in this I don't want I want the
Mm,
next person who's in my situation to have the resources I didn't have, but I felt lucky enough to, be able to find. Because I can't talk to how many people I've talked to who've gone through all these invasive procedures that were totally unnecessary. And they have all kind of limits on their lives because of the damage from those surgeries. And EACP would have fixed their symptom, but it would have made them sharper in the brain. Their penis or their girl or boy parts would have worked better. Their
right.
bladder, the odds that they weren't getting up to pee at night in their 50s or 60s or whatever would be really good, or at least a reduction in that. Like all these little things that are important are going to get better as well.
Yeah. Because it adds up, right? So, and that's what we talked about part 5 of the book, right? The frontier, new research, emerging applications, and unanswered questions, right? So, what excites you the most about the
Mm,
current research
yeah,
that's out there?
yeah, 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 yeah. Portable
Yeah, what's
machines
the
are
scoop
the
on
wave
that?
of the
What's the
future,
scoop
my
on that?
friend. We
Yeah,
got
what's the
machines
scoop on
now.
that?
We got machines now that I could have a machine up against that wall right there, right now, and you'd probably see it, but it wouldn't be as big as my headboard, and it could just sit there, right? And when I want to get a treatment, I can bring it out into my living room and just lie down on my couch and slap my cuffs on and hit up the
Uh,
machine. I've been sitting there watching. I don't know. I'm into a couple of different shows. I watch one of those shows while I'm getting my treatment, in my own living room. Like
wow.
that's possible now. Um, and you know, um, that same portable machine can be taken to a location where they don't have any access, and it could be there for a couple of months, right? And
Um,
we run a bunch of people through the machine and then move it on to the next location. Or we also they got a lot of remote things, so it make a provider more comfortable. Like they can get data off that machine now and kind of know how things are going from a data perspective. All kinds of things along those lines, man. Like this is
uh,
technology is always shifting forward, but the ECP story hasn't really kept up. The technology has continued to keep up, but that's because other countries are using it differently, and they and
right.
they have technology we're the benefactor of. But now um, there are some companies, there at least one, and it looks like two that are going to start manufacturing, maybe even three in the U.S. again, and so we may get even more innovation, and we get.
Wow.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's all about collaboration, right? So you have the clinicians, you have the researchers, you have the patients. It is the trifecta
yeah,
of getting this machine to people who need it,
yeah,
right? And you shared with me earlier, you say people use the machine and reduce dementia. You talked about diabetes, knocked out diabetes. Back to where they're within normal standards.
yeah.
What other procedure or what other effects that you've seen positive
Oh,
from using the machine?
mental health disorders. You have way less depression. I
Mm.
need twice as much sleep as I need right now. I currently
Wow.
need half the sleep I've needed my whole adult life. The whole time I was on active duty, needed 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night. I need 4 now. It's because here, check it out.
Wow.
Can you see that head vein there?
Yeah.
See that big old thing? Look at that worm
Yes.
right there. Right in the middle of it. I
Is
grew
that
those,
from the
man.
machine?
I grew
Oh,
those.
is that
Yeah.
from using the
Yeah.
machine? And
Yeah, man. If you see
wow.
me in the right light, you're gonna be like, "Yeah, that dude's veiny," and I am. I'm veiny because I got, optimal blood flow to a lot of places, including my brain. And now my brain, I believe, clears out all the gunk that you normally use sleep for in half the time because I got these big giant channels. And, I'm not saying these are them. I get it. These
Right.
aren't going necessarily to my brain, but it's a proxy for what else you can't see, right? Um, because you have these major highways that are these arteries, right? And then you have all these other little channels that are the size of a human hair that are really doing the work throughout your body. You can't see those, but I have a lot more of those. Whenever you poke me anywhere, I bleed. Like it doesn't like I get
Right.
little infections. You can't poke me anywhere with practically without drawing blood because I'm just that well vascularized. Everywhere. Yeah.
Wow. So over the next decade, where do you see? I know you said you would like to have it in every home or at least in a
E-
centralized
Every
location
30 minutes, every 30 minutes, we
every
need a
30
yeah
minutes.
point. Yep, every
So
30.
that's part of the future, right? The next
Yeah.
for cardiovascular
This is
care.
happening. This is absolutely happening, and when that happens, I can rest. I can take a break finally.
Mm,
But I'm not, I'm in this to win this. Like this has to be. We've gotten this wrong for so long. We have to start getting it right. It's just too important. It's just too important. My pops just died. He's a veteran. He passed 3 years ago of dementia. That was not necessary. I'd much rather he'd been around for a little while longer and died of something else. Not that. That was a very, very crappy way to go. My mom, I shared with you earlier, she had a
right.
bypass surgery that seemed to have stole her cognition. It's a very common phenomenon called pump head. And she's in memory care right now. She's doesn't have a brain. And it's been a very wicked slide. This has not just happened yesterday. It's been really rough for years leading to where she's at. Um, that didn't have to happen either. Um, but you got to get ahead of this stuff on the earlier side of things, like the longer you let it go, the harder it is to fix, and the less sure you are you're going to get a complete resolution to the problem. But when you get ahead of this is why I was talking to you, like people use the ECP like a little bit of an insurance plan. It'd be probably the
Right.
best money you're going to spend on that. Um, so yeah,
No, it's good. I thank you for the ones tuning in. We speaking to Jack Clifford, the author of EECP, and we're talking about ways to have a better way of life, a better life cycle,
and
lifestyle. And Jack, I wanted to, with the acceleration of artificial intelligence and technology is going at a fast rate.
hell yeah, it's crazy.
Playing alongside therapies like ECP, like where do you see those two having that connection
Well,
and
one,
moving forward to the
I
next
couldn't
stage?
I couldn't have done what I've done in the last 6 months without AI, Like
Mm,
I don't have to be a web developer now to make my website work good. I can come up with creative ideas and I can see them changed in the next 5 minutes. Like it's a powerful tool. I don't think I could do this without her. I don't know what that looks like. I don't even want to think about it. It's just, too many hats I would have to roll, how too many people I'd have to pay to do things I don't have to pay to do now. Um,
right.
so there's that just from the business development perspective, but um, like people have an honest internet now in there. Not, I mean, AI is
Mm,
screwed up too, but hopefully you use a couple of them. You don't rely on just one because they,
right.
yeah, you got to play them off each other. But keep them honest. But you're going to get a very comprehensive answer that if you just were to Google 3 years ago, what is EECP, you're going to get this kind of really generic, nondescript answer. Now you can ask AI detailed questions, and it will give you very, very detailed answers at the level you can understand them at wherever you are. So, like people can't hide from as many things as with AI around, I believe. Um, So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a skeptic about a lot of aspects of AI, man. I've seen the movies, like, I've read the books. Like,
Right. Yeah,
don't
where
quote
every
me as
good
saying I'm all
there's
in on AI because
right, where every good
scares the
there's
shit
some
out of me.
challenges too. So, no, this is great. So, what legacy do you want this book to leave? Because it's like I said, it's broken down to 6 parts, 27
Yeah.
chapters,
Read the
and
first
there's
5
a
read my story at the beginning, right? You know, if nothing else, it's a little technical in places on purpose because 'cause I'm trying to write it for providers, and I want doctors to,
mm,
wrap their minds around this too, because most of them haven't heard about it either, but at least read my story and know what the world of possible is, and then,
mm,
maybe go to the website and, make sure you understand that it's not just heart disease. If people get those 2 things, like, "Hey, Jeff did something that wasn't theoretically possible." Good, know that. And then know what he
mm,
did related to his heart might work for your kidneys or your brain or some other part of your body. And, you got those 2 things down and you're equipped now as long as nothing's
mm.
wrong with your day. You put that in the back of your mind, and when something bad happens, take that out and wonder for a second if the ECG has a role in whatever you got
Right. So, if someone's listening today and has been told that they run out of options, what message would you want them to hear before they lose hope?
going on. 1, I want you to know that your doctor doesn't know everything. And,
Mm,
like, far from it, and I don't care if they work at Mayo or wherever, Cleveland Clinic, that doesn't mean that they know everything. Um, 1. 2, uh, like, if you find something you wanna try, I mean, some of the problem is, like, a lot of the things that people talk about cost way too much money, and most people can't afford it, so they're never gonna be able to try. But ECP is one of those things where it's not $10,000 stem cells in Mexico, right? I mean,
mm,
you can have one treatment at a time and self-pay at, rates as low as like $100 an hour, and like there's a way for you to get the therapy one way or another. And if you don't think there is, call me. Let's talk. I mean, hopefully I can maybe convince you that there is. I'm not hard selling anybody. Like therapy sells
right.
itself. I don't got to do that, but um, I do want people to know that this can be that level of life changing for them. That it's worth pressing. I tell people if all the time, I drive the shittiest car in the world and have my ECP machine than I would be without my ECP machine. That's where my
uh,
priority in life. If you want to look good in your driveway or whatever, man, or do you want to look good and feel good, like you
right.
know,
So, what's the one part of this journey right here about the power? Asking that one more question,
yeah.
like not taking no for an answer, or
Well,
you know what
and
I'm saying, like not.
I'd go even one step further to saying always being open to new information because, the situation changes
Uh,
time and what you thought the right answer was a year ago, a month ago could be very different
uh,
if you're open-minded to new information. I mean, a lot of people I think aren't really very good at that. They kind of settled in, oh no, this is the answer. I like to be the guy that's constantly open for a better answer or a more expansive answer.
yeah. So definitely, like if you used to get into like, I tell people, to go to the core, right? Instead of looking at the symptoms,
Yeah,
let's get into the core.
yeah.
So the core for the medical industry, of course, is at the schools, right? To get into where they start learning their medical
Yes,
practice.
that's true. Yeah.
So if you have 5 minutes to use the guest speaker
Yeah.
at a medical school, what would
Okay.
you
I'll
want them
deliver
to
the hell out of
remember?
it. Well, first of all, before I answer that question, let me tell you, my son's about to finish medical school, and he ain't telling him nothing about ECP the whole time he's there. I mean, he heard it all of it from his pops. But anyways, if I was doing my elevator pitch to a bunch of medical students, I would
Mm,
say I would probably have to, really lean on like different disease processes that I know they're familiar with. But
mm,
they get all segmented in their thinking because they, are overly focused on this one area, this one organ system or whatever. But I would just help them like remind them, the blood connects all of these things together. And there is not another component of our biology that serves that function. There isn't. It's the blood. And, if you can't fit the blood to the places where it is needed or in the volumes it is needed, there's going to be degradation of function. Like that's not something I think anyone could really argue with me if they were a sensitive, intelligent human being. Like I don't think that you can. And so
Mm,
if you can just accept that as fact for a second, then you know, we should be putting a lot of our effort into optimizing that and seeing what the downstream consequences and more likely benefits are of
mm,
prioritizing blood flow optimization earlier in everyone's disease process, which is really just aging, you know?
right. How about speaking to a veteran, a caregiver, or a patient who feels
Oh,
they reached the end of the road? What would you say to them to keep asking questions, keep seeking answers, keep believing that there still may be
make
options?
sure you have an advocate. Find an advocate early in the process.
Mm,
If you're you may when you're the patient, sometimes you can't be the advocate because you're
right.
tired or your brain isn't thinking as well as it can, or a bunch of other reasons. But there are advocates out there that will help connect you to resources and give you thoughts. And I'm a big believer in that. But do know that if you can't advocate for yourself, somebody needs to, or you could get lost in a wide variety of different systems. Certainly, we both know the VA, like as a patient, you can get lost in the VA system, you know. And I mean, I believe it's getting better, like substantially better, but it could still happen. You need to be looking out for yourself and making sure that buddies are out of it, professionals, people that are going to look out. It's a buddy system. Like we don't
Yeah.
need that, you know.
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you because here is my scoop, for
Okay.
sitting on the stool with you, my scoop from the book, from your book, my takeaways
Mhm.
from your book. I wrote them down. So I'm going to share with
Okay. All
you.
right.
The first
Yeah.
time you ever heard it.
Yep.
The viewers and the listeners haven't heard, but this is my takeaway from going through the book and writing how it aligns with my journey in life and what I see that's going to help me in the future, right? Innovation only changes when people know it exists.
Yeah.
The,
Yes. That's
right? The best medicine isn't always the newest medicine,
yeah.
right? Because you said it's been around for a while,
30 years. It seems
30
so old. How
years.
could it possibly be helpful? No, it's still the real deal, man. Yeah.
Hope begins with better questions.
Yes.
An informed patient is an empowered patient.
Mm. That's scary to some people, but yeah, it's true.
And this is like I said, this is me sitting on the stoop giving you the scoop of your book right here.
Yeah.
This is what my takeaways.
Nice.
Healthcare advances when curiosity outpaces complacency.
Yes. Yes. And uh, the man, that pain in the ass patient that doctor gets sick of hearing from, but eventually the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? You know.
Mm, yeah. The future of medicine belongs to collaboration. Remember I tell you that trifecta? You got to collaborate.
Mhm.
The patient,
Yep.
with the doctor, you got to collaborate. What's new out there? Because maybe they might not heard about it. And you heard about it, like, hey, doc, I want to look into this right here. And they're like, oh, what's that? Well, hey, here's the information. Is it covered? Can I get it? Can I get a prescription for it or something? Or well, let me look into it. Like
Yep.
that collaboration, right? Closed mouths don't get fed, right? So
Yeah, there you go.
that's why every overlooked therapy deserves an honest conversation.
I agree. Yeah.
Knowledge can be as life changing as the treatment.
Yeah.
Medicine moves forward because someone refusing to stop asking why.
Yeah.
And my last scoop of your book, sitting on the stoop, sometimes the next breakthrough isn't new. It's finally being noticed.
Yeah.
So now that I have the EECP knowledge, and you say it has multiple benefits, right? Because I told you, of some things that's going on right now, and it's like,
Mhm.
hey,
Yeah.
they could get that, and it could help them with their back. It could,
Yeah.
they won't have a fall, and it helps with the nervous system.
Yep.
I didn't know about this before this conversation, before I got your book, right? And now I was like, man,
Yeah.
I can't wait to sit down with Jack to talk about this because this is newfound information for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to be increasingly available. So if people start the awareness campaign now, even if you just knew about it now, you might not need it now, but you might need it a year from now, 2 years from now. So, hopefully a year or two from now, it's going to be a lot closer to you geographically for you to actually try it, you know, because we're gonna do this. We're gonna get these access points increased in number substantially in the very near future. I mean, we already are doing it, right?
Mm. And the last day before we transition off of the stoop, like how do they get a copy of the book?
Oh
How can
yeah,
they reach out to you? How can they get to your
sure.
website?
Yeah.
And how can
So
they get a machine if they have
yeah,
the financial
yeah.
structure to get it done?
So go to eecpbook.com and then you can book a meeting with me if you want. I don't charge nothing for it. I love talking. This is my favorite subject. I'll talk to anybody about it anytime. So, if you want to just gab about it and then we can talk about how the machine issues or use cases or ownership or whatever, we talk about all of that. And then um you can also go to eecplocator.com and find your closest provider, but also there's a whole bunch of different informational resources there, videos, testimonial videos, and I've got provider portal where I'm getting the providers across. The few we do have, I'm getting them talking to each other now, right? And we're doing training so that they're going to have really good training on every aspect of ECP that could matter. Um, so we're like that. It's constantly shifting. As I shared with you earlier, I just started building the sites like 3 months ago. We're just getting into it. And so if you had those two resources, you'll have what you need. You can always get a hold of me. I'm easy to get a hold of intentionally. We got a Facebook group. You could join that, and you can find links to those off those two sites. But people ask good questions in the Facebook group, and that's it. Like, just get yourself informed. This is important. This is like worth investing in, just finding out where your closest access point is now and noting it. Just making sure you understand a little bit about this, because if you don't need it now, like I said, you might need it at some point, or a loved one might need it. And if you didn't have that knowledge, they might go get a surgery they didn't need to have. Maybe that surgery doesn't do what it's supposed to be doing for them. And
Right.
so.
Man, I appreciate. Thank you for coming and sitting on the stoop to share the
Yeah,
scoop about your book about EECP and about how can it help benefit others. To the listeners and viewers out there, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, pass along to somebody else that do not know about EECP, about Jack and his book, and about the knowledge that he's sharing. And it's research back, right? If you go to the back of the book, you see a
yeah.
lot of
That's just some of the research. There's so
right.
much more. Yeah. Hmm.
So it's been vetted. He's did a lot of research. So cut
Yeah.
through the noise. And you don't have to drown in to see a transition. And I tell people, like, this is more than just a veteran channel, a military channel. It's a life channel, right?
Yeah.
Transition. Everybody transition from one day to the next. You transition from your car. If you listen to it now in your car, and then you go
Yep.
walk inside your house and put it on YouTube, that's fine. Everything is a transition, but you don't have to drown in cut through the noise. Grab
Yep.
that lifeline. We're here to help. Thank
Yeah.
you, Jack.
Uh-huh.
Once again, until next time, everybody, take care. Peace.